Dear students, I am taking up chapter 23, the Halving Principle, section 2. In the previous chapter, we have learned that in case of monosyllabic word, when a thin stroke is halved, only T is added. But in this chapter, we learn that this M, N, L, and downward R. These four are thin strokes. But even in case of monosyllabic word, these four thin strokes may be halved for the addition of D also. So how we do is, if we halve it, only T is added. But if we halve it and thicken these four strokes, the sound of D is added. For example, for mate, if you write M halved, it is enough. But in case of maid, here you have to add the sound of D. What you do is, you have it and at the same time, you write it thick. The sound of D is added. In the same way, neat, N halved only. But N-E-E-D, need, you write N halved and thickened to add the sound of D. In the same way, LD, we write downward L and halved and thicken that. It gives the sound of LD. It should always be written like this, downward only. In the same way, downward or halved and thickened adds the sound of RD. Downward or halved and thickened gives the sound of RD. As in old, downward L halved and thickened, vowel, old. Hired, ticket, downward or halved and thickened. This LD sound and RD sound should not be halved if a vowel comes between L and D and R and D. For example, you compare these words. Pallid, paled. For paled, you can write downward L halved and thickened. But in case of pallid, between L and D, there is E vowel. So you cannot use L halved and thickened. You have to write the consonant in full. P, L and D. In the same way, RD also. Marred, married. Marred, you can use RD. M or halved and thickened. But married, here between R and D, there is vowel. So you cannot write R halved and thickened. Here you have to write the consonant in full. M, R, and D, married. But MD and ND, it may be halved, even though there is a vowel between M and T or M and D. But only LD and RD halved should not be halved when there is a vowel between L and D or R and D. Previously, we have learned that when L is written downward and thickened, it represents the sound of lr. In the same way, when you write downward R and thicken that, it gives the sound of r. But now you should not assume by having lr and r, we will get the lurd and rurd, because we have used the sign ld and rd to represent only ld and rd. It should not be read as lurd and rurd. This is n. We know when we tick on that stroke, it gives the sound of mp and mb. And this is ing. We write it, tick. This is ing. This imp and imb and ing cannot be housed unless they are hooked initially or finally. So to have these two consonants, that is imp and imb and ing, there should be either initial hook or final hook. Then only we can have these two strokes. Otherwise, we should not have. For example, impute, I-N-P-U-T, impute. Here, imp, you have to have it and add the sound of T. So there is no initial hook or a final hook. Here you cannot have it. You have to write imp and T, impute. In the same way, imbued, I-M-B-U-E-D. For imb, you have to add the sound of D. There is no initial hook or final hook. You cannot have this. You have to write imb and D. But if there is an initial or final hook, it may be halved. For example, this is hamper. Hampered, a imp. Here imp may be halved because there is R hook in the beginning. Next, impugned, I-N-P-U-G-N-E-D, impaled and n hook. Here, imp may be halved. The reason is there is final hook. Belonged. In the same way, ing also, unless there is initial or final hook, it should not be halved. So, belonged. Here, there is no initial or final hook. So, you have to write in full. B, L, ing and D. If you write ing halved, what happens? B, L, ing halved. You will read it as ND sound, belonged. But it is not give the sound of belonged. So that's why it should not be halved, because there is no initial or final hook here. Malingered, M-L, inger halved. Here in this case, you can have this ing because there is initial hook. We know this RT sound is represented by ray halved generally. LT sound is represented by writing L halved. That is also general written. Example, fort, F-O-R-T, fort. And then part, P, ray halved, part. Pelt, P, L halved, pelt. Or pelt. But after N and ing, LT should always be written downward. For example, inlet, I-N-L-E-T, ringlet, ray-ing, L-halved, R-I-N-G-L-E-T, ringlet. But After W, when LT comes, between L and T, if there is vowel, it is written upward. Otherwise, it is written downward. For example, dwelt, D, way. Here, after WLT is there, between L and T there is no vowel. It is written downward. But in the word twilight, T, way. Here, after W, LT sound is there. Between L and T there is vowel, I diphthong. In that case, it should be written upward. Next, RD sound we have learnt. It may be represented by downward or hard and sometimes it becomes difficult. It doesn't give good joining when this form is used. In such case, we use rehard to represent the sound of RD. For example, Lord, L, rehard. Colored, K, L, rehard. After Shanhook, when this stroke sound comes, usually stroke sound we write from upward to downward. But after Shanhook, when the stroke sound comes, sometimes it is written upward and sometimes it is written downward according to convenience in writing. For example, protection, Parhad, K, protection. Protectionist, this is protection. Now, protectionist, protection. Now, we write in the usual direction, upward to downward, in this case, stroke sound. Education, D, K, education. EDUCATION. Now we have to write educationist. Educationist. Now D, K, Shanuk. Now if you write stroke sound here, in this case usual direction, upward to downward, it becomes awkward joining. So after here, after Shanuk, stroke sound is written from downward to upward like this. So after Shanuk, stroke sound is sometimes written upward and sometimes it is written downward. The next is strokes of unequal length should not be joined. That means one full length stroke, one half length stroke should not be joined. We can join provided if we can make a distinction between a full length stroke and a half length stroke, as in afford, F or D. Here, as soon as you see, you can make out. This is thin stroke and this is thick stroke. So, this is a full length stroke, this is a half length stroke. We can join. But you see, C-O-O-K, cook, K and K. Now we have to write C-O-O-K-D, cooked. If you write K and K hard, you cannot make out whether you return full length or a half length stroke. So in such case, halving principle is not employed. We write KKT, cooked. In the same way, look, looked, L-K-T. You have to write in full. When half length T or D comes after T or D, that T hard or D hard is disjoined. For example, traded, trade. Now after T, dead is coming. So you cannot join D hard here because we learned the rule, strokes of unequal length should not be joined. So here what we do is that dead is disjoined and written like this, traded. In the same way, treated. tree. Here you cannot join T hard. So we disjoin it and write it like this, treated. Sometimes we disjoin to get a distinctive outline. For example, you have to write the outline for aptness. This is apt. Now if you join n circle here itself, you cannot make out as p hard and n circle. So in such case, what we do? We write apt and n circle is disjoint so that you can read it easily. In the same way, hesitatingly. Now hesitate, H circle, T hard. Now if you join ing and l, it doesn't give good joining. So what we do? After T hard, that ing and l is disjoint so that you can read easily. The past tenses dead or dead is always indicated by equivalent of T or D. For example, or dead, brave, dead, coated, etc. Next, let us see how we can make use of this Halving principle in phraseography. You can use this Halving principle to add these words. You can use Halving principle. If you write F through the line, it is F. If you halve it, then it is written on the line because half line stroke should not be written through the line. So for that, the sound of it is added. If it. If you add the circle for that, if it becomes if it is. To add the word to also, you can employ Halving principle. For example, this is able, this is to make. Now we have to join together. Make. So you have it able, you will add the sound of to by halving it. You remove this to, only join M and K. It becomes able to make. So you can add the sound of to. You can add the consonant T also. For example, this is tull halved above the line at all. This is times. Now you have to write at all times. You have this tull, the sound of T is added. So remove this T, you join M circle at all times. So this word is represented by way hard, and also we can represent wood also by writing way hard. For example, this word way hard is used to represent word because we know word is a grammar. Here like this also you can write, but when it is joined we use way hard to represent word. Would also may be represented by way hard, as in we would be. Would is a grammar, we write like this, but in phrases when it is joined we can write way hard also to represent the word would. To represent a negative phrase, we can employ Halving principle. This is I am. The negative phrase is I am not. So what you have to do is I, you have M and then add N, it becomes a negative phrase. This is you can, you cannot, you have K and add N, it becomes a negative phrase. And then I will, negative phrase is I will not. You have this L and then add N, it becomes a negative phrase, I will not. So in this way, we can make use of Halving principle in phraseography. This is the end of the chapter. Now, grammalogs in this chapter. K hard, above the line, represent cannot. Jehad Enoch on the line represents gentlemen, gentlemen plural, Gentlemen. If you write Jehad Enoch above the line, it represents singular, Gentleman, gentleman. Particular, Parhad above the line represents particular. If you write Parhad on the line, it represents opportunity. Shalhad above the line represents child. Balhad on the line represents build, building. Talhad on the line represents told. Tarhad above the line represents tried. Tarhad on the line represents trade or toward. Tarhad, if you add circle, it represents towards. Yenhard and thickened above the line represents hand. On the line, it represents under. You practice these grammar blocks by writing each one page each, and then you practice all the grammar blocks by writing at least one line each, which have come in the previous chapters, so that you will remember them. Now, I will give the dictation. Now, the exercise 87. Here the shorthand outlines are there. So you see the key, and then as usual read the shorthand outline, copy the shorthand outline and transcribe the outlines. Afterwards we check up with the exercise 87 given at page number 109. If you have made any mistakes, you write those outlines several times so that you will not repeat that mistake again. In the same way, exercise 88. Open the key, there you will find the shorthand outlines. As usual, read the shorthand outlines, copy the shorthand outlines, and transcribe the shorthand outlines. And then check up with the exercise 88 that is given at page number 109. And then if you have made any mistakes, write those outlines several times so that you will not repeat that mistake. Now, I will give the dictation. Exercise 89. Please get ready. Start. If the little stones which you have rolled from under your feet were able to speak, they would relate to you a great story. The story of this old world of ours, as it was thousands of years ago. They cannot, however, and the story will not be told by them. But let us suppose that one particular pebble could talk and that it seized the opportunity to do so. It would tell you and the other gentlemen of your party of changes in climate, great mad upheavals, when the mighty ocean turned to dry land and the highest hills, and the hard rocky mountains tottered and fell towards the sea and became indeed the sea bottom. Full stop. If we listened as a child might listen to the story told by the pebble, we might learn of the movements which are even now tending to turn parts of the earth into more habitable places and other parts into desolate wastes. Next, I will give the dictation. Exercise number 20. Get ready. Start. Quite early in man's attempt to penetrate into the great secrets of the earth, when he tried to find its hidden treasures of gold and diamonds for the purposes of trade, he learned one important fact, namely that it grows hotter as you descend. This is evident also from the hot springs found in different parts of the world, and still more evident from the volcanoes which, when violently active, pour out molten rock until it covers the country around to a thickness of many feet. A great authority on the subject has asserted that there are slight earth tremors every quarter of an hour. Full stop. The hand of man seems weak indeed when we think of the wondrous power of these mighty forces.